Board right now. So everything is live. We're live on YouTube. I welcome all of you and appreciate your attendance. Really high level numbers, more than 160, 170 people now attending. Sorry that our Zoom only had the capacity for 100, but we'll get this to everybody via YouTube Live. And if you were unable to attend or any of your friends were unable to attend, let them know that we'll put it on the YouTube page shortly after. Give us about an hour after the conclusion of this, and it'll be up. So with that, I am giving all powers and controls over to Megan Azebu as she will navigate you through what is a challenging process with her counterparts, Ollie Vargo Brown, Elizabeth Jardine, and anybody else who's a college coach that they may bring into the fold. I see a few on, but I'm not sure how much they'll get to talk to you. But I do know that there is a wealth of information on here that they are willing to share, and I look forward to a great presentation. Take it away, ladies.
Awesome. Thank you, Adam. I am going to just take one moment here to change these chat settings. So what I'm doing right now is I'm going to just set it so that all of your chat messages come straight to us. So if you do have questions, the chat box is the place to put them, and then they'll come directly to us. We'll compile them and try to answer as many as we can as soon as we're done presenting all of this information to you. Okay. All right. These are at the end here. All right. So thank you for joining us today, everybody. As Adam said, I'm going to be joined by Holly Vargo Brown and Liz Jardine. I wanted to take a moment to just point out that although we are coaches of varsity programs, we're really here to talk to you guys today about the collegiate program as a whole. And we're really honored to be representing both our varsity and our club programs as members of your collegiate committee. So we hope that you'll be using this as kind of a jumping off point to learn more about what each of our individual programs have to offer. And to start, we're going to be giving you a quick overview, just kind of how Collegiate Synchro works. We'll talk a little bit about the nuances between varsity and club programs. And one of the things that we want to stress to everybody on this call is that we really think that there is a place for every kind of athlete in one of our collegiate programs. So we would love to see more of our athletes continuing their collegiate synchro careers after high school graduation. Whether you're ultra competitive or a little bit more relaxed, we know that navigating the college application process can be extremely stressful and an anxiety-inducing process, especially with coronavirus and all of the changes that the pandemic have wrought. So we hope that you'll use this to help you navigate finding your fit. If you're a coach or a parent joining us today, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. And we know that your swimmers or your athletes will benefit from all of your knowledge in the future. So I did have just a couple of things to kind of share before we get going. So as Adam mentioned, we do have a bunch of people who are joining us through the YouTube. So if you're on that YouTube, please make sure to type your questions just as a comment. We'll have somebody monitoring those so that you can have all of your questions kind of thrown in with all the Zoom chat members. If you're on the Zoom call, like I said, please submit your questions. They'll come directly to me. And then we'll talk about some of those at the end. So one of the things that we want you to know, we're going to be speaking really generally today. So we will not be talking about any one institution or any one program. And the reason for that is so that we can stay compliant with our NCAA rules. If you have questions, as I'm sure everybody will, or if you have specific questions, we really encourage you to start reaching out directly to the programs that you're interested in so that they can have the chance to tell you a little bit more about themselves as well. The last thing, and we'll repeat this at the end, if you do have a question and it doesn't get answered here today, go ahead and reach out to us. It's collegiatesynchro@gmail.com. That's the account that will come directly to all of your collegiate committee members, and that way we can answer some of your questions if you have something specific for us. All right. So as I mentioned earlier today, I'm going to be joined by Holly Vargo Brown and Liz Jardine. So I am Megan Azebu. I am the head coach at Stanford University, and I'm also your collegiate chair. So I'll be kind of moderating, and I'm going to let these guys jump in and talk about kind of the meat and potatoes. Oops.
I'm Holly Vargo Brown. I'm the head coach of The Ohio State University, and I am also the current technical chair for the Collegiate Committee.
Hi, I'm Liz Jardine. I'm the head coach of the University of the Incarnate Word, and I am the current program development chair. Thanks for joining us.
All right, so before we get started talking about any of our individual programs, we are going to talk a little bit about what the purpose of Collegiate Synchro is. So as you can see here, the purpose of the collegiate programs is to initiate and improve intercollegiate athletics programs for student athletes and to promote and develop educational leadership, physical fitness, athletics excellence, and athletics participation as a recreational pursuit. I will let you keep reading, but I think that first sentence really does a good job of summing it up, or really does a good job of nailing it on the head. Our role really lies at the intersection of academic and athletic excellence. So we're really proud of the fact that our athletes are able to hone many of their soft skills, like leadership, like time management, you know, the pursuit of excellence. I think all of these qualities make them extremely employable going into the workforce after graduation. Okay. For those of you who are unfamiliar, we wanted to start with just a little bit of Collegiate Synchro 101 because it does function a little bit differently than most of the other competitions or most of the other parts of USA Artistic Swimming. So first off, Collegiate Synchro is a winter sport. So in the realm of intercollegiate athletics, you have 3 seasons, right? You've got a fall, a winter, and a spring. Being a winter sport means that our championship season runs between January and typically the end of March when the Collegiate Championship is held. At that Collegiate National Championship, you'll see athletes from both club and varsity programs vying for the overall title, although it is important to note that there's also a club champion title. One kind of call out that we wanted to make is there is a maximum squad size. So there's a maximum squad size of 20 athletes per institution or per school that can actually touch the water and compete at our national championships. That typically means that you can have a maximum of 2 teams with alternates. One of the things that I like to talk about when I'm talking about Collegiate Synchro is how you win. So when we talk about a champion, we're really talking about the overall title winner. So that overall title is earned by combining points from the solo, duet, trio, and team events, as well as technical competition. You heard us right there. We do swim trios, which is actually one of the most fun and unique parts about Collegiate Synchro. It's definitely a crowd pleaser. And in each of those routine events, you're swimming only a free program, so no tech programs. And each school can count a maximum of 2 entries per routine category. Lastly, we wanted to kind of reiterate or make sure that everybody understood, we do follow the NCAA Division I general rules. We've also passed a few synchro specific modifications to fit our needs. And you might be asking yourself why that is. Well, the answer is that it's actually rooted in the fact that they're considered the gold standard for intercollegiate athletics, but they're also a holdover from when synchro was on the NCAA emerging status list. So although we're no longer required to follow these rules, the collegiate coaches and athletes feel that abiding by them really helps us to maintain a consistent and equitable standard for all of our competitions. And like we said, every year we're really trying to hone those rules to fit our needs as a smaller sport. So we have passed a couple of synchro specific variations, like our national team participation rule. So that allows us to have a little bit more flexibility. All right, now I'm going to pass this along to Liz. Oops, one more thing, sorry. So this is our overall point chart. As you can see, there are lots of different ways that you can earn points for your school. The biggest takeaway for me here is that it's a lot of strategies. So instead of trying to win just one of the individual events, your team or your school's total points are what you're counting towards the overall title, and that really makes any win a team win. It means that every routine that you're competing and counting is going to go towards that overall title. So that makes that feeling of camaraderie, I think, even stronger in the collegiate programs. Okay, now I'm going to pass it over to Liz Jardine, and she's going to talk a little bit more about the differences between varsity and club programs. Oops, hold on, let me unmute you.
Thank you. Hi, everybody. So I may switch between using the term artistic swimming and collegiate synchro. While talking about the sport, I'm going to do my best to make sure I refer to it as artistic swimming, but when referring to our group as a collegiate group, I will be referring to it as collegiate synchro because that is what we go by at the moment. So collegiate synchro, what you're going to see is you're going to see a wide variety of different types of universities and colleges, whether they're large or small, D1, D2, D3, NAIA, Varsity, or club. But what's really cool is that we all come together and we compete and represent our institutions with pride. What I'm going to be focusing on more so is what makes the club program experience unique. So we'll go ahead and go to the next slide. And one of the biggest things is that that makes club programs unique is that they function mainly as a student-run organization. And so student-run organizations are, sponsored by their institution as an on-campus club. And you're going to have some specific rules on how they function that vary from institution to institution. So I'm just going to focus on the general competition rules and general experience that you might have as a club student athlete. There will be some level of financial commitment, whether, some fundraising might be expected. Your time commitment will vary. It will typically be less than 20 hours a week when you're in full season. And the majority, what you're going to be seeing is possibly 4 to 8 hours. For competition, in order to qualify for the collegiate championship, you have to hit a minimum number of competition dates. And for club programs, that is 3. And with that is also attending the regional championship. So we have 4 regions: North, South, East, and West. So sort of like how artistic swimming has their zones, we have our regions broken down into those 4 categories. You're going to see a wide range of skill, and the wide ranges of skills are also welcome at a lot of the club programs. You're going to see some athletes that are learning our sport for the very first time, which is really cool, but you're also going to see athletes in the club programs that have represented on the national level and even have had Olympic experience, which is really cool. One thing to note is that new clubs are 100% welcome. So as you're looking, you're going to hear us say, find your fit, find your fit, find your fit. So as you're looking at some of the different universities, if you don't see your dream school on there or something, or a university isn't quite fitting you, but you don't want to let go of artistic swimming quite yet, we'll definitely help support you as you venture to start a new program. There's support from me, the program development chair. So if that's something you're interested in and you're watching this video, you're like, I'm already in university, but I don't have a team, but I'd like to start one. Please reach out. There's also resources available through USA Artistic Swimming, and we might be able to help you also navigate the grants that you may be able to request through the USA Artistic Swimming Foundation. So let's go ahead and go on to the next slide here as we talk a little bit more about the programs. So here you're going to see our current club programs that we have represented. And as I mentioned, there's a wide range. You can look at these schools and see the different majors that they offer, what they value and different things like that. Some of these programs may have recreation teams and competitive teams. Some teams may only be recreations, some may only be competitive, but some offer both. And some of this is to account for the different skill levels, but also the different commitment levels that you get to choose when you're a club student athlete. I really encourage each of you that's watching this video to support these institutions and research them and get to know what they have to offer. So you can go to the USA Artistic Swimming page, click the collegiate tab, click on these programs' logos or the emails to who's in charge of the program and get to know more about it. Go ahead and go to the next slide now. And really, we're going to talk about some of your possibilities, and they truly are endless. Being a club student athlete allows you to not only support you in finding this community that artistic swimming offers, but it also allows you to possibly be able to balance it with other passions, maybe that are academic, athletic, cultural, or other service-oriented organizations as well. Something that is also super unique right now to our collegiate club programs is that we have seen the mixed duet honorary competitors. They've been competing in this category, and they've only been our club programs that have been representing in this. So that's been a really cool thing. Another thing to note is that our club programs, a lot of them have a really rich history. They've been around for a long time, and this might be a good way to expand your professional network and your alumni connections. But that rich history truly is something special. You're going to be able to work on, we had already talked about work on skills such as leadership skills. You're going to work on sportsmanship and teamwork. As I had mentioned, that it is a student-led organization most of the time for the club programs. And so you might be able to go for positions such as, you know, your club president, vice president, treasurer, different things like that, which allow a lot of different opportunities. Go ahead and click to the next slide now. Thank you. Oh. Yep, there you go. Don't count them out. So this is for both don't count out club programs, but also don't count yourself out. So whatever your experience level is, maybe you started Synchro later, maybe you've only done it for a year, maybe you had a hiatus, there's still a program for you. Maybe you've been on, you know, a national champion and you've been swimming for 13 years, there's a program for you. So I really encourage you to, again, not count yourself out, don't count these programs out. And if you're like, well, I'm nervous about starting, you know, a new program because I have a dream school that I want to go to that doesn't currently have a program. Again, don't count new programs out. They've done amazing things. In their first year of existence, we've seen brand new club programs compete at collegiate nationals. We've even seen them final in trio and duet events. Now, those were some experienced athletes, but that's still super exciting. Another thing to note that all those club programs that were represented in that slide, we've seen student athletes represent their country in the Olympic and World Championships. We've seen them win the overall national title, so not just the collegiate club title, which is awesome, but also the overall one. Student athletes have been named to national teams, but more importantly, they also remain involved as really important parts of our USA artistic swimming community here. As a lot of you can see current coaches, you can see current master swimmers and current judges, which is super, I think it's super exciting. So that was just a little gist on some of the club programs. I'm now gonna pass it over so you can learn more about some of the unique things for varsity programs.
Okay. Am I unmuted?
Yes.
Okay, I guess I'll take this one. Varsity programs. So the difference between varsity and club is that varsity programs can sometimes offer athletic aid. The major difference is that they are usually fully supported by their athletic department. That time commitment throughout the year is typically a 20-hour per week with 1 day off during the season. Based on the NCAA rules, we cannot go more than 20 hours per week. So that's different sometimes for club athletes coming in and, you know, trying to get more work done at a shorter period of time. As Liz said, the club programs they have to compete in 3 separate dates of competition. Varsity program have double that. They must compete in 6 separate dates of competition. Again, they must attend the regional championship to qualify for the collegiate national championship. A lot of times in varsity programs, you'll see additional support services available, such as strength and conditioning, athletic training, sports nutrition, sports psychology, etc. As Liz said, and again, you'll hear a lot from us, it is, again, finding the best fit. You want to look at what institution is providing you the best academic path that you have to achieve your career goals post-college competition. And the next slide will show the current varsity programs.
So same, I'm going to jump in really quick. Same thing here. When you go to the USA Artistic Swimming website, you can go and you can click on the different logos from the different institutions, and they should be able to bring you up to websites, and you're going to see email links. So if you're looking for specific information for specific teams, whether it's club or varsity, go there.
That's great. As a varsity program, there are specific rules, again, that we need to follow per the NCAA. So this slide is just a little insight into some of the lingo related to recruiting. So if you have started classes for the 9th grade, you are considered a prospective student athlete. You remain a prospective student athlete until when you start college classes or when you begin training with the college team that you have selected. The difference between a recruited athlete and a walk-on athlete, as you can see, in a recruited athlete, a college coach will contact you off campus. They may pay your expenses to visit a campus, or they will offer you an athletic aid grant toward a scholarship for your university. A walk-on is someone not typically recruited by the school, but they're not receiving a benefit of any financial aid. You can still be on the school team, but you are considered a walk-on. An evaluation happens when a college coach observes you practicing or competing. So for example, if a college coach shows up to a local age group meet or maybe US juniors and is sitting in the stands and watching you, observing your practice, or maybe watching you compete, that is considered an evaluation. Please remember that when college coaches are showing up to observe your skill, they're also paying attention to things like how you relate to your teammates, how you speak to your coach, how you speak to your parents. We're trying to also look at not just the kind of athlete you are, but the kind of person that you are as well. The one thing to note here on this slide is it's called a dead period. A college coach may not contact you during this time. And those periods of time are set through the NCAA. So if you're planning on hopefully coming and seeing a coach, or you're hoping a coach will come to a competition during that time, they might not be able to do it if it's within a dead period. Okay, next slide. This is a great slide, recruiting timeline. I know a lot of people have questions as to what happens during my high school career. So we'll take it each slide through each year. So a freshman. At this point, communication between a prospective student athlete, 9th grader, or a coach is not permitted. So we cannot call you, we cannot reach out to you by phone call, we cannot text you, email you, etc. In addition, we cannot return phone calls or texts or emails that you send to us. So please don't think that, oh, I reached out to a coach, they didn't respond, they're not interested in me. It's just that our hands are tied during this time of your high school career, and we may not communicate with you in that way. For freshmen, recruiting materials are limited. Basically, we can send you things like information about our synchro camp that we're going to hold, or information just in general about competing in college, but nothing specific to our program itself. Evaluations that we talked about are permissible. The thing to note is if a college coach does show up at your competition and you recognize him or her, if you go over and introduce yourself, that's fantastic, but please recognize that the coach will only be able to say, thank you for introducing yourself. They will not be able to talk about their program or answer any questions that you might have about the program. Off-campus contact is not permissible. That feeds right into what I said about evaluations, and campus visits are also not permissible. So if you're thinking about visiting a school, just know that as a freshman, that a college coach will not be able to meet you on campus, talk to you. You won't be able to set up a meeting during that time. For sophomores, a little bit more opens up. As you can see, telephone calls and electronic correspondence are unlimited after July 1 following your sophomore year. So it's coming up pretty quickly. So at that moment, if you want to reach out to a coach can respond back to you if it is after your sophomore year of high school. Same thing for some recruiting materials. So after July 1, following your sophomore year, we can begin to send you information directly about our program and encourage you and hope that you will pick our institution. Evaluations considered on the same way, and off-campus contacts, campus visits are still not allowed. Junior year is when everything really kind of picks up. So August 1, prior to your junior year, we are then allowed to say not just, oh, it's nice to meet you, but we can answer your questions if we see you off campus. In addition, you can begin to visit campuses either on an unofficial or official visit, which we'll talk about in a little bit. So what can you do when you are a freshman and a sophomore? What you can do is kind of search and research, look at what your options are. Think about what your major is that you want to pursue. Find the institutions that have that major available to you. And like Liz said, if they don't currently have a synchro program, let's reach out and get it started. Start to build your academic resume, et cetera, so that you're ready to go when a college coach is ready to talk to you. Social media guidelines. So every college coach understands that social media is a fantastic way for us to connect with you. So we can connect with you as a prospect or your team or your coach or the facility that you train in, or perhaps an event that you're involved in. So this is a fantastic chart to refer back to. As a college coach, all of us can friend you, follow you. We can be connected with you in that way through your social media accounts, and you can be connected with us. So we can learn more about you, you can learn more about us. With that being said, we are not permitted to make any comments on your social media. So if you are showing a fantastic split rocket, we can be friends with you to see that, but we would not be able to comment and say, oh, great job. So if you know that college coaches are following you, please don't be offended if they're not commenting on the great things that you're doing. We're just not permitted to do so. We can take those posts that you're making and we can repost them as long as we're not adding our own personal comment. So it's kind of like a public-private thing. In public, we cannot comment on anything that you're doing on your social media accounts. We can like it, we can favorite, we can little heart emoji it, we can do all those things, but we cannot add our own personal opinion to your account. So please know, as I said before, about what we're looking for when we're going out to see you personally on your social media accounts. We're also trying to get a feel for who you are. So what your likes are, what your dislikes are, the way you present yourself. And then likewise, hopefully you're looking at programs and saying, oh, that program seems like a good fit for me. They're heavily involved in community service or whatever it is that you're looking for at your school. Okay, next slide. Thank you. For a varsity coach, these are all the little boxes that are coming in toward us of things that we're trying to check off. We need you to be an amateur. So what does that mean? If your club program has paid for your travel to a competition or a hotel or your food, that's okay. As long as whatever money you're receiving is for actual and necessary expenses. If your parents group is giving you an extra $50 because you're just an amazing synchronized swimmer or artistic swimmer, that's not okay. So we need you to have an amateur status. One of the ways that we check that off is by asking that all varsity potential student athletes must register with the NCAA Eligibility Center or clearinghouse. So that does a couple things. It helps us assure your amateur status, but it also makes sure that the classes that you're taking, the classes that you have taken, are allowing us to be sure that you will be academically eligible to compete at the collegiate level. We of course want to see your ACT and SAT scores, your AP scores, your high school transcripts. Remember, if you compete in college, you are a student athlete, not an athlete student. So student first. So we are looking at people that take very seriously their academics so that we know when they get to college that we can count on them for getting the job done. And then of course your athletic resume, make sure you include recent things that you have done, and athletic videos. They don't have to be fancy. It can literally be your coach, your mom, your sister, whoever, filming you at a practice on a smartphone, and then just texting it off to us. The better, the more, the better. Okay, next slide. This slide is basically the things that I just said. It is important to notice as you're looking through this slide that, as Megan said early on, COVID-19 is a very fluid situation. So it's really important that you target those institutions that you're interested in and reach out to find out what their current requirements are. Everything on the left for varsity program is pretty standard, but some allowances have been made for COVID related things. It's just important to stay on top of that the whole time. Okay, next. Official versus unofficial visits. Just briefly, I mentioned it before. So an unofficial visit is any visit by you and your parents to a campus. It's unofficial if you have paid for everything. So the college coach cannot pay for your parking. They cannot take you to lunch. They cannot pay for any kind of entry that you might have come to or whatever. No money, no payment can change hands. On an official visit, you are probably being provided some portion of your expenses for that visit. And that will vary on institution by institution and year to year. College coaches are looking at what their budget is, how much money they can spend to bring people in, how many people they want to bring in, etc. But if you were to come, be invited, and we even just paid for your parents' lunch and your lunch, that would be considered an official visit. In order for that to happen, the college is going to ask, or the coach is going to ask you to make sure you're registered with the Eligibility Center, make sure you send a high school transcript. Some institutions will also require test scores and perhaps a copy of your 12th year, your grade, or your classes that you're taking for your 12th year. Important, one last thing on official visits, they are only allowed to be 48 hours. So if you arrive on campus at 9 a.m. on Friday morning, you must be off campus at 9 a.m. on Sunday morning. Okay, next. Recruiting for club programs. So just as every varsity program is just slightly different, the club programs, as Liz said, will have a wide variety of things that they are able or not able to do for recruiting. So it's so important that you connect with those club programs and find out specifically where they are in that process. Their institutions will have specific rules for their club programs, and it might be different from one to the next. Some clubs are allowed to actively recruit. Some clubs have to wait until you come on campus. Typically clubs are trying to get numbers, so there's not usually a maximum number of participants. So don't worry if there's not recruiting involved. You are going to be able to participate in that program as we grow this sport. Remember that because clubs are self-funded, anytime you visit, your expenses for that visit are going to have to be paid by you and your family. Okay, I'm going to pass it over back to Megan for scholarships.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, so we have not talked about scholarship up to this point, but I know that I can speak for at least my program when I say we get lots and lots of questions about this. So like many of these other topics, this does tend to be very, very individualized. So I would encourage you to reach out to the specific institutions that you're looking at. But there are many, many different forms of scholarship available. So a couple of them that we're going to talk about specifically today: merit-based aid, athletic aid, and then need-based financial aid through the FAFSA. Okay, so merit-based aid, the biggest thing that I think as collegiate coaches want you to take away from this is the stronger your academics are coming out of high school and the stronger that they stay throughout college, the more opportunities that you will have specifically based on your academic standing. We do have, or varsity programs are allowed a maximum of 8 athletic scholarships per institution, although many institutions do not have the full 8 scholarships and some don't have scholarship at all. So that means that for athletes in the position of not having athletic aid available, merit-based base aid or financial aid from the federal government may be the only option. So for those varsity programs, one thing about the scholarships, you can divide them up. So that means that every athlete doesn't need to have a full scholarship. You can have a portion of a scholarship, meaning that they can be allotted to more athletes throughout the team. And for a lot of the athletes in our synchronous swimming programs or in our artistic swimming programs, they can combine these types of aid. So while you may not be able to get a full athletic scholarship, you may be able to combine a portion of an athletic scholarship with some merit-based aid to help cover more of your expenses. This is definitely a conversation that you may need to involve your parents in as you're going through the college application process, because they may need to provide a lot of their tax information in order for you to qualify for certain programs. Another thing that we heavily suggest is being as open as possible, or as open as you feel comfortable with the programs that you're speaking to, so that they can fully understand your needs and they can connect you with as many resources as are available to them. The financial based aid dispersed through the FAFSA is a federal program that can connect you with grants and loans. One thing about that though, you do need to reapply each year in order to keep receiving aid. So it's important to make sure that you don't miss those deadlines if that's something that you're relying on to be able to finance your education. All right, oops. So that brings us to kind of the end of our talk in regards to varsity and club programs, but we did just want to take another minute to touch back on how COVID-19 has impacted a lot of the incoming students or student athletes that we see applying. So we know that many of the high school students have had difficulty accessing SAT and ACT dates simply because they've been canceled. For many schools, they have entertained or they have decided to waive the standardized testing requirement, although this is not by any means standard across the board. So if it's something that you have not yet taken, definitely a reason to check in with the collegiate programs that you're looking at. Additionally, a lot of the high schools have switched from pass-fail or have switched from letter grades to pass-fail or credit no credit. Most of the time, this is completely out of the student athletes or the students' control. So colleges are trying very hard not to hold this against students. But again, the dispensations are going to be different based on each institution that you're applying to. Lastly, I wanted to just make sure everyone was aware. So Holly mentioned dead periods earlier, and we're actually currently in a dead period, which means that although electronic and phone communication are still permissible, on-campus visits would not be. So if you were making plans to visit a college program during the summer, stay tuned for more updates because we do expect to get more information as the summer goes on and as the COVID-19 situation evolves. All right, so now you may be wondering kind of what you're supposed to do with all this information. We have definitely dumped a lot on you in the past 40 minutes or so. So the first thing that we want you guys to do is to take a look at the program list on the USA Artistic Swimming website. So we've gone through, and Liz has really done a really good job making sure that all of those programs are up to date with their most recent contact information. So you should be able to get a hold of any of the clubs that are listed on that page. Another place that you can find help navigating the situation or finding your fit is speaking to your current coaches or to your parents. You know, those are the people who have a lot of insight about what makes you tick and what makes you successful as an individual. And I think that input can be super helpful when you're trying to navigate which college program might be the right one for you. Lastly, if you are kind of approaching that age when we can start to talk to you or when you are able to be recruited, start reaching out to the programs that you're interested in, whether they be varsity or club. It never hurts to start getting your name out there and to start voicing your interest with the program that you're hoping to become a member of. And lastly, throughout all of this, I think communication is key. So the more upfront that you can be, the more honest and open you can be with your goals and with your expectations, the better opportunity that that collegiate program is going to be able to provide you. All right. So we're going to be giving you guys a few super important links in the chat box. They'll also be available on the USA Artistic Swimming website. And then we're going to do some questions because I think we've gotten a few in the past few minutes. If you have questions or if you are left wondering or if there's something we didn't didn't cover, please make sure you type your questions in the chat box so that we can get them answered. Okay, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. I had just a couple of questions here to start, so we'll get these out of the way since they're pretty straightforward. So the first question, so in this year's case, obviously not having had any of the national championships, how will evaluations be handled since none of the competitions for 2020 are slated to still be held? So that's a really great question. And I know for a lot of the athletes who are improving year after year, you want to be able to show your strongest foot forward when you're trying to impress a college coach or a college program. I think this is a case where video is going to be super, super key. You can take video at practice. You can take video off of Take It Live. You can have your coach send your best practice swim. We understand that, you know, you can't control the situation and you have no control over whether a meet was held or not. So the best that you can do is to submit accurate practice footage. You can also submit results from any of the competitions that you competed in prior to the pandemic, or you can even go so far as to have your coaches, your current coaches, write a letter of recommendation to talk about some of the skills you could bring to the team. Okay. Oh, now you guys have got all the questions coming in. All right, so let's go for another one here. I might throw a couple of these to you guys too, Liz and Holly. So are there dues for club programs? Short answer, yes. But it really depends on the school and the level of your participation, how much the dues might be. And, you know, the dues might be a certain amount, but the club might undertake fundraising efforts to help offset some of that cost. Again, I think it's really dependent on what school you're at and what the program's budget is to determine how much each individual student athlete is expected to contribute. Okay, Holly, I'll throw this one to you. So this person is asking, do you still practice 20 hours a week during the off season?
Oh, we do not. We have off-season rules as well. So during an off-season, we are only permitted 8 hours of practice a week. So it does, you know, a preseason, we're looking at 8 hours per week, and then post-season, we're back down to 8 hours per week. So you really have to be prepared to stay focused and get a lot of stuff done in a short period of time. Great question.
Liz, I'm going to throw this one over to you. So if I have been on a national team of another country, not just the USA, what is that an advantage? Is that an advantage, and how?
Ooh, that's a good question. It's also a loaded question. It can be an advantage. It does show some extra experience that you've had. Maybe that experience had allowed you either more training or a different type of training, or a larger, like I said, a larger stage, more competitions have been available to you. How important that is, again, is going to be up to each individual institution. So if you have one that you are interested in, ask them. So but I'd say for a majority, yeah, that definitely helps.
Cool. Holly, I'll throw this one over to you. How can coaches send letters of recommendation to other coaches? Or maybe what's the best way to get a recommendation from a coach?
So if you're interested in a specific university, please make sure that you're reaching out to that coaching staff, even if it's multiple coaches at that time. Every institution is going to be slightly different. So, you know, what Ohio State asks for, Wheaton might ask something differently, or however, you know, whatever school that is. So communication, as Megan said, with the coaching staff is very important. Typically, we will do those kinds of things through email. So, you know, make sure that you have our email addresses and just reach out directly to us.
All right. So this is a good one. I'm going to take this on myself. So is it harder for people who are on smaller teams to get recruited than people who are on bigger or better known teams? So I would say the answer to that one, it can be, but it doesn't necessarily have to be that way. Yes, if you are on a big team that has traveled all over the country, you might be more familiar to some of the collegiate coaches because of that exposure. But being from a smaller program doesn't necessarily mean that you'll be counted out by the collegiate coaching staff. And I think, again, because we're looking for well-rounded student athletes, sometimes the people who have more unique stories and people who have come at the sport from maybe a smaller team, or who have had to really fight for all of the achievements and the practice time and the experience that they've gotten, sometimes that can be really valuable for a program as well. Now, that really doesn't speak to kind of one or the other. I think it really just comes down to what an individual collegiate program is looking for and kind of how you fit that kind of puzzle up that they're trying to create from their team.
Hey, Megan,
yes.
Can you also put in the chat box for everyone the link to signing up for the recruit sheet? So yes. Good question. If you're a part of a bigger team and you might have more exposure, but if you're a part of a smaller team and you've had less exposure, it's really important that you sign up for this, get your name out, and then all of the collegiate coaches will get an updated link with this information that you guys sign up for Recruit List.
Yes, I think I actually missed that one. So we did not talk about that in our presentation earlier, but that is something that we should cover briefly. So I just put the Recruit List link in the chat box so that you guys can access it. It's also pretty easily visible if you look on the collegiate tab of the USA Artistic Swimming website. And that form that we're sending out now is really important if you're looking to start the recruiting process this summer. If you are a little bit younger and you have a few years left of college, we are going to start switching to a collection of information via the membership survey that you complete every year with your registration for USA Artistic Swimming. So it won't be a separate form moving forward, but for this year, if you're interested in starting the recruiting process this summer, super important to make sure that all of the collegiate coaches know you're interested in joining one of their programs. Okay. Okay, we've got a bunch of good ones. What are yours, or what would starting a new club look like if classes are virtual with COVID? Liz, do you want to take that one on new clubs?
Oh wait, what you just said?
So she was just asking, what would starting a new club look like if classes are virtual with COVID?
That is a great question. So for club programs, lots of times, because we have mentioned that there's a large variation of rules from institution to institution. And so if you're interested about starting a new one, I really encourage you to reach out to myself or just email the Collegiate Synchro at gmail.com, which we can also put in the chat box, because what we'll do is we'll walk you through looking up your institutions. They might just have a rec page, they might have a club page, they might have a life sport page, and normally on that institution website, it will have a sheet, a program of what you need to walk through in order to start a new program. And normally that's open to the public. So normally I can view that and then walk you through what is needed, or help draft an email to whoever is in charge of the overall club programs at that university. So with COVID, if classes are online, what does that look like? I think it's still the same thing. We still need to individually reach out to the institution and who is in charge of club programs at that institution. And then we can make sure that we follow the guidelines. And then you're more likely to be able to get your club up and rolling.
All right, we've got one more. Okay, so here's a good one. What are your suggestions on how to take current videos to send if your club team is closed and you haven't swam for a while? So we talked about that a little bit, but I wanted to touch back on it because I think a lot of you athletes are going to be in this position in the next probably year or so. So we totally understand that the pool closures and the not having practice are going to make it really difficult for you to take new videos. And, you know, I think as collegiate and club, whether it be club or varsity coaches, we understand that we're looking at the potential of an athlete. We're looking at somebody who's going to come to one of our programs and grow. So, you know, although it's great to have the most current and most up-to-date videos, we've got to make do with what we've got. So sending whatever you have from before the pandemic, or sending videos that you can find from past national competitions, that would work as well.
And also,
okay, and then there's, oh, sorry, go ahead, Holly.
Sorry, just also want to point out, I'm not sure if I said this before, but we really are looking at the whole athlete. So, you know, make sure that you're sending us your information on academics. And then if there are other things that you're involved in, you know, being in college and competing in college is not just the sport, it's the sport and the school, and then your involvement in different organizations of wanting to make a difference. You have a huge platform that you're walking into of being able to make a difference as a college athlete. So all that kind of stuff can still keep coming to us so we can learn more about you as a person.
Absolutely. Okay, we've got two more really good questions that we haven't covered a whole lot. So the first one is, does having a certain academic assistance, such as an IEP or intervention learning plan for a disability, affect your recruitment probability or likelihood? And you know, I think the answer to that is no, it definitely does not. Does that mean that you're going to have additional conversations with that coaching staff? Absolutely. I think as student athletes, whether, you know, you're in high school now or whether you're in college already, but, you know, as an individual who has had to seek out extra assistance, you're probably really well equipped to keep that open line of communication flowing between yourself and the coaches. I would encourage you to keep doing that. I think that really at this time in our country, having any sort of learning disability or having an IEP, needing certain academic assistance definitely does not mean that Collegiate Synchro is off the table. And I think that all of our collegiate programs, whether they be club or varsity, have resources that would be able to help you implement successful strategies in college. The second question that we haven't touched on a whole lot is, so if somebody was a team member for one of the colleges and made it onto the national team, would they be able to take time off to then compete on the national team? Holly, I'm going to throw that one your way because I know you've had a number of athletes who have been in that position before yourself.
Yeah, it's also a great question. So what we want to do as coaches of athletes that are particularly talented in that way, we just really want to make sure that our communication is open and that we really have a handle for what it is that you're trying to do. We need to work through our compliance departments to make sure that we're giving you the very best information as far as how much time you can take off. In most cases, we can make that happen. So it's really just making sure that you're upfront with the coaching staff about what it is that you're trying to do. Remembering that we want you to be the very best student athlete that you can be. And if your goals include national team in the Olympics, we're going to try to figure that out for you. But the more that you can communicate, please don't ever feel like you're over communicating. The more that you can keep us all in the loop, the smoother things can run. Definitely possible.
Yep. All right. I think we do have a couple of other questions that I'm reading through in the chat, although they do look like a lot of them are kind of individual one-offs. So what we're going to do now is we'll take all of the questions that you guys have asked in the chat box. If they didn't get answered in the general session, we'll put them into like an FAQ document and answer them and post them so that you guys can have answers on the website. But I know some of these are definitely pertaining a little bit more to one particular athlete situation. So I think that is it for us this evening. I wanted to take a quick second to thank Susanna Fernandez from Ohio State for helping us run the YouTube channel chat, and then obviously Holly and Liz for all of the time that they've spent with me trying to get this presentation together. We hope you guys have learned a whole lot. I know there's probably a lot more questions, so if you do have them, please make sure you reach out, and hopefully a lot of you will be signing up for that recruit list so that we can start contacting you on July 1st. Yay. All right, thank you guys so much.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great night. We'll see you guys soon.
Oops. Maybe we missed it. Maybe we got it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
See ya.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Cool. Just trying to wait so I can capture all of these questions before we sign off. Cool. Oh, hey there, Suzanne. I see.
I was gonna say, Betsy, I saw you for a second.
Oh, she's
Oh,
up.
wait,
and
hold on.
running.
We'll unmute you. Uh-oh, am I clicking it?
Now I'm watching myself on YouTube. That's weird. Okay.
Wait, what? How's it going, Betsy?
Oh, fine, thank you. How are you guys doing?
Pretty good. I was telling Suzanne and Holly and Liz, we just finished our team banquet on Thursday. So it seems like really late because I feel like you guys have been saying how you've been out of school on summer break for a whole month now. I'm like, crazy.
I still haven't had a team banquet. I'm going to do a virtual one. Not certain how I'm doing it, but I'll figure it out.
The name of the game these days. Not a whole lot of other choices.
Could we have Adam stop the YouTube streaming?
Oh,
Awesome.
Where's the volume?